Hi everyone. So I'm getting back to my What is Satan series and just checking out who and what Satan is according to the scriptures. So when we look at the early Roman Catholic Church, we have this movement called Marcionism. It was an early Christian dualistic belief system that originated with the teachings of Marcion of Sinope in Rome around the year 144. So this is really early on in the Roman Catholic Church, and we can already see a deception happening in the church, more than likely Kabbalistic, saying it's Gnostic, but I would say it's directly from the Kabbalah. Marcion was an early Christian theologian, evangelist, and an important figure in early Christianity. He was the son of a bishop of Sinope in Pontus. About the middle of the 2nd century, 140 to 155, he traveled to Rome where he joined the Syrian Gnostic Serdo. Marcion preached that the benevolent God of the Gospel who sent Jesus Christ into the world as the Savior was the true supreme being, different and opposed to the malevolent Demiurge or Creator God, identified with the Hebrew God of the Old Testament. He considered himself a follower of Paul the Apostle, whom he believed to have been the only true apostle of Jesus Christ. Well, clearly there he's already wrong. Marcion's canon, possibly the first Christian canon ever compiled, consisted of 11 books, a gospel, which was a shorter version of the Gospel of Luke, and 10 Pauline epistles. Marcion's canon rejected the entire Old Testament along with all other epistles and gospels of what would become the 27-book New Testament canon, which during his life had yet to be compiled. Pauline epistles enjoy a prominent position in Marcionite canon, since Paul was considered by Marcion to be Christ's only true apostle. Marcionism was denounced by its opponents as heresy and written against by the early church fathers, notably by Tertullian in his 5-book treatise Adversus Marcionum against Marcion in 208. Marcion's writings are lost, although were widely read and numerous manuscripts must have existed. Even so, many scholars claim it is possible to reconstruct and deduce a large part of ancient Marcionism through what later critics, especially Tertullian, said concerning Marcion. So, according to Tertullian and other writers of the early proto-Orthodox Christianity, the movement known as Marcionism began with teachings and excommunication of Marcion around 144. Marcion was reportedly a wealthy shipowner. I wonder if Marcion was also a member of a merchant family. The son of a bishop of Sinope of Pontus, Asia Minor, he arrived in Rome 140 soon after Bar Kokhba's revolt. So Bar Kokhba revolt, or the Jewish expedition as the Romans named it, was the rebellion by the Jews of the Roman province of Judea led by Simon Bar Kokhba against the Roman Empire, fought circa 132 to 136 CE. It was the last of 3 major Jewish-Roman wars. So interestingly, he arrived in Rome around that time. Soon after, so the organization continued in the east for some centuries later, particularly outside the Byzantine Empire in areas which later would be dominated by Marcionism. So, schism with Marcionism. By the reign of Emperor Commodus, Marcionism was divided into various opinions with various leaders, among whom was Apelles, who Rhodo describes as priding himself on his manner of life and his age, acknowledges one principle but says that the prophecies are from an opposing principle, being led to this view by the responses of a maiden by the name of Philomene, who was possessed by a demon. However, others, among whom were Pontius and Basilius, held 2 principles, as did Marcion himself. Others considered that there are not only 2 but 3 natures. Of these, Cineros was the leader and chief. So the teachings, the premises of Marcionism is that many of the teachings of Christ are incompatible with the actions of the God of the Old Testament. Focusing on the Pauline traditions of the gospel, Marcion felt that all other concepts of the gospel, and especially any association with the Old Testament religion, was opposed to and a backsliding from the truth. He further regarded the arguments of Paul regarding law and gospel with wrath and grace, works and faith, flesh and spirit, sin and righteousness, death and life, as the essence of religious truth. He ascribed these aspects and characteristics to two principles: the righteous and wrathful God of the Old Testament, who is at the same time identical with the creator of the world, and the second God of the gospel, who is only love and mercy. So the Demiurge in the Platonic Marcionites held that God of the Hebrew Bible was inconsistent, jealous, wrathful, and genocidal, and the material world he created was defective, a place of suffering. The God who made such a world is a bungling of malicious Demiurge. Neo-Pythagorean, Middle Platonic, and Neoplatonic schools of philosophy, the Demiurge is an artisan-like figure responsible for fashioning and maintaining the physical universe. The Gnostics adopted the term Demiurge, although a fashioner. In the God of the Old Testament, he saw a being whose character was stern justice and therefore anger, contentiousness, and unmercifulness. The law which rules nature and man appeared to him according with the characteristics of this God and the kind of law revealed by him, and his God is the creator and Lord of the world. As the law which governs the world is inflexible and yet, on the other hand, full of contradictions, just as again brutal, and as the law of the Old Testament exhibits the same features, so the God of creation was to Marcion a being who united in himself the whole gradation of attributes, from justice to malevolence, from obstinacy to inconsistency. So in Marcionite belief, Christ was not a Jewish Messiah, but a spiritual entity that was sent by the monad. The monad in Gnosticism is the adaptation of concepts of the monad in Greek philosophy to Christian Gnostic belief systems, to reveal the truths about existence, thus allowing humanity to escape the earthly trap of the Demiurge. Marcion called God the stranger God or the alien God in some translations, as this deity had not had any previous interactions with the world and was wholly unknown. I find this really interesting because in the Truth movement and the New Age movement, they are preaching a doctrine of the Matrix, like we are in the Matrix and the world we are in is a hologram reality. And if we look at the philosophy of the Demiurge, basically what they are preaching is Marcionism, and that we are in some creation of the Demiurge and the real world is somewhere else. You know, a lot of New Age teachers preach that we are in some kind of trap, that we have to escape this matrix reality. The only trap I see that we're in is not the reality of this world, because when you look around this world, things go on as normal as God created them. The birds continue to do what's natural to them, the animals, the earth. If anything, the earth is more real than we are, because it's been here for thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of years. And despite us being here for only a very short time, the earth, the elements, the rocks continue to be here. We're just passing through, but the earth is more real than our short lifetime. It's us who live in a matrix reality, and that matrix reality is completely philosophical. It's the philosophy of the elitists who have been ruling over us for millennia. It's how we look at the world, how we understand the world, what we think is normal, and, you know, the systems that we live under. We don't question those systems. We don't consider that there's a completely different way to live our lives, and we just go on accepting constantly politics, religion, all of these things as being this is how it should be, when if we look at things in a different philosophy, according to the Bible, according to perhaps what Jesus was teaching, he had another kingdom, another philosophy, another way at looking at life. He does also offer eternal life within that kingdom, but the kingdom of heaven is now. We can live that philosophy now. We don't have to accept the philosophy of these beast overlords. If anything, what they're trying to do is take us into a holographic reality via the metaverse and this new system that the WEF want to bring in is us all living online in their reality, their not only philosophical, political and religious reality, but a literal visual reality of the metaverse. So in other words, they're declaring themselves as the Demiurge and creating this matrix reality and tagging and digitizing everything that we have in the physical world. So according to this website, christiandoctrine.com, it's done a bit of a dive into the origin of the holographic reality. And it says here the holographic paradigm is that every organism is a hologram and every individual hologram is embedded in the universe, which is a massive hologram. David Bohm called this the holo movement. He based his idea on the works of Dennis Gabor, 1947, who spoke of the existence of two-dimensional holograms. Modern theory states that the two combine, two-dimensional and three-dimensional. A hologram is light reflected off a mirror or off light itself. The idea of a holographic universe arose from the theory of the Organization for the Advancement of Knowledge, which synthesized work done by Northrop and Burr and Gabor. This was rather similar to the way Karl Marx synthesized the works of Charles Darwin, making a physical theory fit a social construct. This is likely trying to make a building from ice cream. There is no genuine relevance even if we accept that both items are constructs. Behind the modern idea is evolution. It was proposed in 1994 by Garyaev Group that DNA wave functions were a biocomputer, thus reducing the brain to a lump of mechanics and implying that the brain is also the mind. So who was Dennis Gabor? Well, here we go. He's a tribe member again. He was a Hungarian-British electrical engineer and physicist, most notable for inventing holography, for which he later received the 1971 Nobel Prize in Physics. He obtained British citizenship in 1934 and spent most of his life in England. Gabor was born as Gunsberg Denny into a Jewish family in Budapest, Hungary in 1918. His family converted to Lutheranism, so he was a crypto. Who was David Bohm? Well, David Bohm was an American, Brazilian, British scientist who has been described as one of the most significant theoretical physicists of the 20th century, who was contributed unorthodox ideas of quantum theory, neuropsychology, and philosophy of mind. Bohm was born in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, to a Hungarian Jewish immigrant father, Samuel Bohm. I don't know, was he related to the other guy? They're both from Hungary, they're both Jewish. They both have tribe connections, and maybe they're just trying to use their science and philosophy to prove the Demiurge. So when we look at Wikipedia here, it says that despite being raised in a Jewish family, he became an agnostic in his teenage years. Bohm attended Pennsylvania State College, now Pennsylvania State University, graduating in 1939, and then the California Institute of Technology for 1 year. He then transferred to the theoretical physics group directed by Robert Oppenheimer at the University of California, Berkeley Radiation Laboratory, where he obtained his doctorate. Now, Robert Oppenheimer is part of the Oppenheimer family. They are a branch of the Rothschild family. They are court Jewish bankers. They're also related to the De Beers diamond fortune. So we can clearly see that there's some occult esoteric links here, and there are some big agendas at play. So according to the Kabbalah, or creation according to the Kabbalah, we have The goal of creation. God's primary goal of creation was a man who was to be made in God's image, according to Lurianic Kabbalah. This original man was not Adam, however, but rather Adam Kadmon, a sort of world soul or semi-divine demiurge through whom the other worlds were fashioned. From within this divine agency demiurge came 32 paths of creation, the 10 Sephirot numbers and the 22 Otiyot letters of the Hebrew alphabet, which are considered the building blocks of the universe. Light and energy emanating from Adam Kadmon formed vessels, kelim, that were to contain the further emanations from the infinite source of light. Does this sound a little bit like the philosophy of holography? But these vessels could not contain these emanations and were subsequently shattered. This rupture in the fabric of the universe created chaos and division. As the divine spark became trapped in layers of darkness, the world of things become kalipot, husks, encasing the sparks of divine light within the vessels in the creation of otherness, a cosmic tragedy that had occurred. Instead of a world of perfection and beauty, the world became Sitra Akra, or the other side. If anyone watches Stranger Things, we could also call it the upside down. I have a bit of a theory and prediction for Stranger Things ending. And when we see the last season, I do watch it, but in the last season we have 11 who is told by one is just like him. And I can see the story going to the male-female unification of 11 and 1. And I think that in the last season of Stranger Things, they may implement this unification of male and female of the same character, creating the Adam Kadmon, or unifying the male and female like the Baphomet or the Freemasonic teaching. Just my prediction. It goes on to say, as a result of this cosmic tragedy of the breaking of the vessels, Adam Kadmon himself was scattered into multiple and individual souls, which are now trapped as Kalipot. Human beings are therefore exiled and in confusion in the other side. Each human soul is nonetheless a spark that originated in the great Adam. The task for humanity is tikkun, repair, the raising of the sparks by removing the kernel from the husk. This is the motivation for doing mitzvot that heal the world, tikkun ha'olam. Eventually, each individual can be reconstructed in the upper world, and the lost sparks of God's light will be restored to Adam Kadmon. Finally, God will be all in all, and the world will be restored to heavenly perfection. Maybe this is the whole purpose of the genocide, to restore the sparks to God. Is that possible? That this is the logic behind what these people are doing? And, you know, when we look at this philosophy, it just sounds like the story behind holograms, that we can break a hologram into how many pieces and yet it still reflects the same whole image. So when we go to Wikipedia of how does a hologram work, it talks about the work of Dennis Gabor. And it says a hologram is a recording of an interference pattern which can reproduce a 3D light field using diffraction. The reproduced light field can generate an image which still has the depth, parallax, and other properties of the original scene. A hologram is a photographic recording of a light field rather than an image formed by a lens. So what happens to a hologram when you cut a hologram in half? Holograms have some very interesting properties that make them different from two-dimensional images. One of these properties that we periodically get asked about is what happens if a hologram is cut in half or even shattered into a million pieces. One aspect of this question is based on the fact that every part of the hologram contains information about the whole scene, but there's also an element of urban legend that holograms are just magic. And because most people have never gotten to make a hologram, much less break one into a million pieces, it has just become accepted that holograms somehow replicate themselves by some sort of physics voodoo? Well, let's find out. So I've got this Litty hologram kit set up here, and to demonstrate this, I'm using just some ordinary dice that have set up for the hologram that we're going to make. Now, for the first part of our demonstration, I've taken a picture of this exact same setup, and I've got some scissors here. I'll cut this picture into 3 pieces right between the dice, and you can see that if I only have one piece from the picture, I would only know what number was on the die from that piece. Here I've got a 2, but I would have no idea from just this piece of the picture that there was a 1 to the left and a 3 to the right. This is, of course, what you expected, but what about the hologram? I've already got the laser set up and my dice are in the position for the hologram I want. I'll drop in the paper shutter to block the laser light while I get out one of the instant hologram film plates and put it into position. When it's all set, I remove the shutter and the hologram image will start exposing. This process takes about 2 to 5 minutes typically. Once the time is up, I should have a nice hologram, and I'll move the real dice out of the way so that you can see the holographic image that has been recorded, as if the die are still there. Now I'll take the hologram plate and I'm going to peel the hologram film off the glass. I've got my scissors here again, and I'll do the same thing I did before and cut the hologram into sections. I'll take one of those sections and put it back into the glass in the about same spot, and I'll put it back into the setup for viewing. As you look through the piece, you can see the die with the 2 on it, but here's the crazy part. As I get closer and look around inside this piece, I can also see the die to the left and one with a 1 and the die to the right with a 3. I can actually see all of the dice from the original hologram just in the one piece, 1, 2, 3. The reason this works is because unlike ordinary pictures, which only capture one perspective of a scene through a camera lens, a hologram is a type of lensless photography that captures a multiple of perspectives of the captured scene. So when you cut the hologram in half, it is not that the hologram is replicating itself into each piece, but rather that the half you have is a smaller window into the whole scene, and you can look around inside that piece and still get perspective that show the whole scene instead of half. This is like looking through a keyhole, and you can still see the whole room on the inside of the door. Each piece of the hologram captures a unique perspective of the whole scene. Very cool. So, like if we look at the esoteric meaning behind the hologram and Adam Kadmon, and each spark representing Adam in the one piece, do you think maybe that this person, David Bohm and Dennis Gabor, may be trying to fit the holographic science to fit the Kabbalistic Adam Kadmon theory? I think they might be. Like if we look at how a hologram works, the reason it reflects the whole image is because when the image was taken, it's got all perspectives of that image, opposed to a 2-dimensional photo that has the one perspective and doesn't contain the information of the whole of the picture that's going on. So there's no doubt that a hologram works, but the theory behind it that they're putting here, that the universe is holographic and that it's a representation of an image of a reality, then I think they're trying to fit it into this Kabbalistic philosophy. So what does that mean about people that preach that we are holographic, that we live in a holographic universe? It means that they're teaching Kabbalism. It means that they're teaching the Kabbalah. And, we can't trust this. We can't trust that the science or the philosophy behind it is real. We can trust that it works and that it's there, but we can't trust the philosophy that they've attached to it, because they're using these realities to prove their Gnostic teachings.
So when I was saying about current events coming like 25 years ago, it was like, yeah, oh, yeah, you're mad and all that stuff. And then they happen. And you think, well, I knew this was going to happen. And the same sequence that I knew this was going to happen is the sequence that's led me to write The Trap about this afterworld control system. And you're absolutely right in what you're saying about this light. I go into in the book what this light actually is. You see, light, what is light? Well, what is the simulation, first of all? The simulation at this level is electromagnetic light. And, you know, when it says in Genesis about God creating the world in 7 days, let there be light. I think what's being described there is the creation of a simulation. And I've explained why I think that in the book. It's an area that once you get into it, the mysteries of life, there are endless. Oh, so that's what that is. So that's why they do that. So that's what that really means. And it's something I've come to recognize because it's happened for so long, and it's happened in this case again.
So, what is David Icke talking about here? And does he know what he's saying? Like, is this just some concept he's come up with, or is he deliberately trying to preach Kabbalah? So when we look at the Jewish virtual library regarding Adam Kadmon, it goes on to say, in contrast to the first man, Adam, the spiritual man is called in the Zohar proper the Adam Kadmailah, primordial supreme man. And in Tikkuni Zohar, he is called Adam Kadmon, primordial man, or Adam Kadmon le Kadmon. The Adam Kadmon signifies the worlds of light, which after the retraction of light of Ein Sof, the infinite, emanated into primeval space. This Adam Kadmon is the most sublime manifestation of the deity that is to some extent accessible to human meditation. It ranks higher in this system than all four worlds: Azilut, emanation; Beriah, creation; Yezra, formation; and Azia, making. The portrayal of Adam Kadmon and his mysteries, and in particular the description of the lights which flow from his ears, mouth, nose, and eyes, play an important role in Hayim, vitals as Hayim, and in other Kabbalistic works of the Lurianic school. Through this theory, the mystical anthropomorphism of the school becomes crystallized. The anthropomorphic figure recurs in all the stages and in all the worlds. In contrast to Adam Kadmon, who is from the holy emanation, stands Satan, from the word of iniquity in the Tikkuni Zohar and subsequently in the Luranic Kabbalah. Satan is called Adam Belial, evil man. In the Luranic Kabbalah, there is no relationship between Adam Kadmon, which is the light, which transcends all other lights, and the Messiah. Such a connection was made only in the system of the extreme Shabbatines, who believed in the divinity of the Messiah and regarded Shabbatai Zevi as an incarnation of Adam Kadmon. Oh, really? He figures as such in a number of poems of the sect of the Donma. Are these people insane? So basically what this is saying is that the first creation, before anything, was created from light. And this is the Adam Kadmon. And that Satan is evil man, Adam Belial. And that Sabbatai Zevi is an incarnation of Adam Kadmon, who is a Messiah. Well, if we know anything about the Sabbatean Zionists, we know how wicked they are. This is the anti-Messiah, the Antichrist. This is the Metatron. So Adam Belial, the male sexual organs represent the material body of the earth's creation in the numerology of 5. And this symbol is used in ritual to conjure Adam Belial. When the male body is circulating energy and connecting with all earthly elements, it is represented by the 5-pointed star geometry, which is known as the pentagram. Within the Kabbalah, in its principle of divine light and truth, the perfect and complete form of the 5-pointed star is represented as Adam Kadmon. Adam Kadmon accesses the kingdoms of light, the dimensional realms inhabited with benevolent, loving, positive, and truthful spirits. In the principle of darkness and lies, the adversary of the light, the material body, is made in the male principle as Adam Belial, in which his will and wickedness is made into material form to serve his selfish desires. Adam Belial accesses the kingdoms of darkness, dimensional realms inhabited with anti-life or evil spirits, demons, poison, and also filled with negative form bodies, dead energy husks, or shells. His correspondents are imperfect human desires made into flesh and used for selfish gratification to take possession of power, royalty, and strength, in which to acquire the treasure of others, riches, and wealth. Within the structure of the Belial principle, he can perceive what the crown chakra, planetary mind, desires to create, and continues to split the creation into gender reversals in order to work against its natural and organic manifestation. His female counterpart is connected to the spirit of whoredom or prostitution, spreading sexual slavery, misogyny, and sexual misery programming. In some ritual circles, the conjuring of Adam Belial consciousness and dark spirits into a person desiring riches, wealth, and knowledge of the hidden mystery requires sacrifice, one of which is related to the wicker man. So do you think that this Adam Belial is what they are showing in the Freemasonic imagery, the pentagram, the Star of Raphaim up here that's on the Israeli flag, Venus, Ishtar, Inanna, Baphomet, and reuniting these sparks of the original creation made from light, Adam Kadmon, which was broken into these divine sparks that represent holographic philosophy. Is David Icke talking about this in what he's talking about? Is he preaching Kabbalah? Or does he just not know what he's saying? Is there truth in this? Because when we look at the Adam Kadmon, he is their Messiah. They're describing the creation of a Messiah. And, you know, I believe this is why Jesus told them that he is the bright and morning star, because they were practicing this Kabbalah in the temple. And he was telling them, I am the Messiah. You know, I'm just learning this myself as I go also, and I've had to reevaluate some of my own understanding. But I get a bit nervous that this whole topic ties in with the worship of the Antichrist or the anti-Messiah. And we can see that this is a Freemasonic teaching, goes all the way back to ancient Babylon with the worship of the transgender god or the male-female, which goes back to their belief on creation and the splitting of this Adam Kadmon character into male and female and these divine sparks of light. When we start looking at all these alternative media personalities, they often preach these philosophies. And I'm just wondering, when we look at these people, are they prepping us to believe a Kabbalistic religious philosophy so that we are more in line with this New World Order global governance and global religion? The Bible does say that we are the light of the world. Matthew 5:14-16, it says, "Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven." So, which version of this are we? Are we light because we have the character of the Father and the personality of the Father, or are we light because we are a divine spark from the original transsexual Adam that's been broken into a holographic image? So we can see that this kind of concept has crept into Christianity today, and even going way back to the creation of the Roman Catholic Church, we had this Kabbalistic doctrine from Babylon, from Persia, creeping in to destroy the original message, and in the form of this Demiurge philosophy. A lot of people don't believe that God will seek justice on the wicked of creation, and that there is no judgment on the wicked, and we just simply get reborn again. Or that to escape this holographic reality, we have to escape the Demiurge or the Matrix, which constantly has us being reborn into it until we understand what it is and we can escape the Demiurge, we can escape the Matrix. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're right about the Demiurge. These people are right. But the Bible tells me to stay away from Babylonian mystery religion, and this teaching comes straight from those ancient cultures. If there is such a thing as the Demiurge, I don't think it's out there in the world. I don't think it's in God's creation. It's more something that's in us. It's in our heads. We are dualistic in our personal nature because of the fall of Adam and Eve, knowing both good and evil. The Demiurge is in our mind. It's in, as I said earlier, the philosophies of mankind, and what philosophies come into being become the systems of this world. A various popular source, Marcion, is often reckoned among the Gnostics, but as Oxford Dictionary of the Christian Church III puts it, it is clear that he would have had little sympathy with their mythical logical speculations. So a primary difference between Marcionites and Gnostics was that the Gnostics based their theology on secret wisdom. For example, where Marcion based his theology on the contents of the letters of Paul and the recorded sayings of Jesus. In other words, an argument from Scripture, with Marcion defining what was and was not Scripture. Also, the Christology of the Marcionites is thought to have been primarily docetic, denying the human nature of Christ. This may have been due to the unwillingness of the Marcionites to believe that Jesus was the Son of both God the Father and the Demiurge. Scholars of early Christianity disregard on whether to classify Marcion as a Gnostic. Adolf von Harnack does not classify Marcion as a Gnostic, whereas G.R.S. Mead does. Harnack argues that Marcion was not a Gnostic in the strict sense because Marcion rejected elaborate creation myth and did not claim to have special revelation or secret knowledge. Mead claimed Marcionism makes certain points of contact with Gnosticism in his view that the creator of the material world is not the true deity, rejection of materialism and affirmation of the transcendent, purely good spiritual realm in opposition to the evil physical realm. the belief Jesus was sent by the true God to save humanity, the central role of Jesus in revealing the requirements of salvation, the belief Paul had a special place in the transmission of this wisdom and its Docetism. According to the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica article on Marcion, it was no mere school for the learned, disclosed no mysteries for the privileged, but sought to lay foundation for the Christian community on the pure gospel, the authentic institutes of Christ, the pure gospel. However, Marcion found to be everywhere more or less corrupted and mutilated in the Christian circles of his time. His undertaking thus resolved itself into the Reformation of Christendom. This reform was to deliver Christendom from false Jewish doctrines by restoring the Pauline conception of the gospel. Paul being, according to Marcion, the only apostle who had rightly understood the new message of salvation as delivered by Christ. In Marcion's own view, therefore, the founding of his church, to which he was first driven by opposition, amounts to a reformation of Christendom through a return to the gospel of Christ and to Paul. Nothing was to be accepted beyond that. This of itself shows that it is a mistake to reckon Marcion among the Gnostics. A dualist he certainly was, but he was not a Gnostic. Well, he must have been a Gnostic because dualism is a Gnostic concept from Zoroastrianism. And as far as Judaism, Christianity, it seems that he wanted to take out the message to the Israelite and to insert the Kabbalistic version into the Christian teaching. So what he was actually doing was Judaizing Christianity. So Marcionism shows the influence of Hellenistic philosophy on Christianity and presents a moral critique of the Old Testament from standpoint of Platonism. According to Harnack, the sect may have led other Christians to introduce a formal statement of beliefs into the liturgy, see creed, and to formulate a canon of authoritative scripture of their own, thus eventually producing the current canon of the New Testament. So according to this Catholic website, Catholic Answers, Marcionism rejects monotheism and the goodness of God's creation and denies the compatibility of the law and gospel. It says here, although Marcion's teachings strongly resemble the good God, bad God dualism that would achieve its full flowering in Manichaeism more than a century later, this theology was neither systematic nor deep. His chief motive in reducing the canon and renouncing the God of the Old Testament was to avoid any connection between Christianity and Judaism. He cared little for the philosophical and theological inconsistencies that his doctrines entailed. He set up his rival sect to purify the Catholic Church of what he considered to be the Judaizing tendencies. So let's look at Manichaeism. And it says, a former major religion founded in the 3rd century CE by Parthian prophet Mani in the Sassanid Empire. Manichaeism teaches an elaborate dualistic cosmology describing the struggle between a good spiritual world of light and an evil material world of darkness. Through an ongoing process that takes place in human history, light is gradually removed from the world of matter and returned to the world of light whence it came. Its beliefs are based on local Mesopotamian religious movements and Gnosticism. It reveres Mani as the final prophet after Zoroaster, Gautama, and Buddha and Jesus. So Manichaeism was quickly successful and spread far out through Aramaic-speaking regions. It thrived between the 3rd and 7th centuries, and at its height was one of the most widespread religions in the world. Manichaean churches and scriptures existed as far east as China and as far west as the Roman Empire. It was briefly the main rival to Christianity before the spread of Islam in the competition to replace classical paganism. So Manichaeism and Christianity, teaching of Mani, 216 to 277, was essentially Gnostic, its constituent elements deriving from Judaism, Judeo-Christianity, and Iranian religion, especially Zoroastrianism, in its Zoroastrianist form. It incorporated features from Marcion of Pontus and from pluralistic Syriac Christianity represented by Bardesanes of Edessa, according to the Cologne Mano Codex and several other primary texts discovered in Egypt. It is basically correct to see early Manichaeism as a kind of Christian heresy. Mano considered himself an apostle of Jesus Christ and, moreover, the paraclete promised by Jesus. Within the Roman Empire, the Manichaeans claimed to be the true Christian believers, while they saw the members of the Catholic Christian Church as semi-Christians, according to the Capitula handed over by Augustine of Hippo. Faustus, the itinerant Manichaean bishop originated from Milevis, Algeria, declared his acceptance of the preaching of Jesus and his belief in a kind of Trinity. For many years, the future Catholic bishop Augustine did the same. So was Augustine a Manichaean? So Mano himself believed he was promulgating a new universal religion that would supersede all others. The prophet from the land of Babylon was born on April the 14th to 16th near the southern Mesopotamian town. So Manichaeism spread with extraordinary speed through both east and west. It reached Rome through the apostle Pasatic by 280, who was also in Egypt in 244 and 251. It was flourishing in Fayum in 290. Manichaean monasteries existed in Rome in 312 during the time of Pope Miltiades. So by 354, Hilary of Poitiers wrote that Manichaeism was a significant force in Roman Gaul. In 381, Christians requested Theodosius I to strip Manichaeans of their civil rights. Starting in 382, the emperor issued a series of edicts to suppress Manichaeism and punish its followers. Some modern scholars have suggested that Manichaean ways of thinking influenced the development of some of Augustine's ideas, such as the nature of good and evil, the idea of hell, the separation of groups into elect, hearers, and sinners, and the hostility of the flesh and sexual activity, and his dualistic theology. These influences of Manichaeism in Augustine's Christian thinking may well have been part of the conflict between Augustine and Pelagius, a British monk whose theology, being less influenced by the Latin Church, was non-dualistic, and one that saw the created order of mankind in particular as having a divine core rather than a darkness at its core. So here we can see that that Augustine influenced the church with a Manichaeist concept. So if we look at the teachings, Mano's teaching dealt with the origin of evil by addressing a theological part of the problem of evil by denying the omnipotence of God and postulating two opposite powers. Manichaean theology taught a dualistic view of good and evil. A key belief in Manichaeism is the power, though not omnipotent good power, God, was opposed by the eternal evil power, the devil. Humanity, the world, and the soul are seen as a byproduct of the battle between God's proxy, primal man, and the devil. The human person is seen as a battleground for these powers. The soul defies the person, but it is under the influence of both light and dark. The continuation plays out over the world as well as the human body. Neither the earth nor the flesh were seen as intrinsically evil, but rather possessed portions of both light and dark. Natural phenomena such as rain were seen as a physical manifestation of the spiritual contention. Therefore, the Manichaean view explained the existence of evil by positing a flawed creation in the formation of which God took no part and which constituted rather the product of a battle by the devil against God. So, we look at Mani, who was from Persia. We have the Jews in Persia who bring their Kabbalistic, Talmudic views back with them and into their mystery religion. And we have this Kabbalistic concept that the devil or Satan has a realm, has left heaven and is equal and opposite to God. And this is not true. Like, we go to the book of Job and we look at, what God says, and we see that God stores up the storehouses of the snow and certain things for times of trouble. We see in the book of Chronicles how God brings evil against people as also good for those in his favor. So if you're a wicked person, God will bring evil against you if he wants to. And, this concept that the devil does things, or the devil made me do it, that Satan is constantly there trying to get us to do evil, is one of a Babylonian or Kabbalistic concept. It is not of the Bible, and it's creating a literal scapegoat, why Satan is represented as the goat, for our sin, to not blame ourselves for our own evil, but to blame Satan. Because what Jesus tells us and what the apostles tell us is that our flesh is our adversary. It's our sinful nature that happened to us, the human race, the human genetics, at the event in the Garden of Eden. Our body, our flesh, is our adversary. Although I'm not denying that there is a serpent, a Satan, or something in that, the concept that there is a evil being who is equal and opposite to God is incorrect. It says Manichaeism presented an elaborate description of the conflict between the spiritual world of light and the material world of darkness. The beings of both the world of darkness and the world of light have names. There are numerous sources for the details of the Manichaean belief. There are two portions of the Manichaean scriptures that are probably the closest thing to the original Manichaean writings in their original languages that will ever be available. These are the Syriac Aramaic quotations by Nestorian Christian Theodore Bar Konai in his Syriac book of Scholia. So the first creation, originally good and evil, existed in two completely separate realms. One, the world of light, ruled by the Father of greatness together with his five Shekinahs, divine attributes of light. And we know the Shekinah is what the Judaism calls the Holy Spirit. And the other, the world of darkness, ruled by the King of Darkness. At a certain point, the kingdom of darkness notices the world of light, becomes greedy for it, and attacks it. Now, we can see that in the book of creation. That is completely wrong, because God moved within the darkness. Genesis 1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning were the first day. No mention of an evil realm or a light realm. It's complete Gnosticism. So Augustine of Hippo, St. Augustine, was a theologian and philosopher of Berber origin and the Bishop of Hippo Regius in Numidia, Roman North Africa. His writings influenced the development of Western philosophy and Western Christianity, and he is viewed as one of the most important church fathers of Latin Church in the patristic period. His many important works include The City of God on Christian Doctrine and Confessions. So it says Augustine's contemporaries often believed astrology to be an exact and genuine science. Its practitioners were regarded as true men of learning and called mathematici. Astrology played a prominent part in the Manichaean doctrine, and Augustine himself was attracted by their books in his early youth, being particularly fascinated by those who claimed to foretell the future. Later, as bishop, he warned that one should avoid astrologers who combined science and horoscopes.